involved in the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The vast majority, though, will be aimed at what the U.S. has called Vladimir Putin's war machine, closing the gaps in the sanctions that he's been able to evade. The U.S. has promised to hold Russia accountable after the death of Navalny. President Biden has placed the blame squarely on Putin.
Fox's Madeline Rivera. The day before the 2-year anniversary of Russia's invasion, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is in Ukraine to show U.S. support. A Senate-approved bill provides new military aid, but that's stalled in the Republican-led House. For the first time in more than 50 years, there's an American spacecraft on the moon. It landed last night. It's transmitting data. It's an unmanned mission, the first by a private company. America's listening to Fox News.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
It'll be back again. Radar is clear, sunny and 42 downtown. I'm Kurt Darling. Here's what's trending at 9:02. Dense fog is burning off in most places after making for a tricky morning commute. But looking ahead, snow is back in the mix.
The bigger change is going to be going from today into the beginning of the weekend. People could be waking up Saturday to a thin coating of snow.
Alex McGinnis with the National Weather Service. Temps will be back in the 60s early next week. Jury deliberations continuing today in the murder trial against Elias Dorsey. Prosecutors say Dorsey knew what he was doing when he shot Officer Breanne Leith in 2020.
That the defendant appreciated that what he was doing was wrong.
Jurors get back at deliberations this afternoon. A teacher in Noble County is suspended. Jen Roberts was suspended by the East Noble School Board after it was brought to their attention that she allowed a student to speak in front of her second grade class about being transgender. The school board said that the discussion was not age appropriate. A merger between Wayne Township Fire and the Indianapolis Fire Department. It's a painful but necessary decision, says Township Trustee Jeb Barden.
We need money to buy new fire trucks, a new ladder truck. We have a fire station that's in really bad shape. And those are things that need to be addressed.
The merger was approved by trustees last night. It now needs the approval of the Indy City County Council. More than 180 pounds of cocaine found in the back of a semi-truck. Harrison Silcox.
State troopers pulled over that semi on Interstate 70 in Greenfield Sunday afternoon. Something wasn't right, says Sergeant John Perrine.
Things just weren't quite where they should be. One of the first indicators that illegal activity was happening.
The logbooks didn't add up, says Perrine. Officers then found 184 pounds of coke hidden underneath boxes of red onions. Jose Perez and Miguel Rodriguez were the two men arrested. Harrison Silcox, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
The Indiana Hoosier women upset Caitlin Clark in the Iowa Hawkeyes late last night, 86-69. Indiana now 22-4 on the year, and they're second in the Big Ten. Traffic on the 5s, Matt Bear.
You got a current looking at a crash at Michigan Road, Vincennes Road on the northwest side. Crash south side, Southport Road at McFarland Road. And northbound 31 Carmel, this is after 131st Street. And a vehicle fire is reported. South side, northbound 37, stop and go Epler Avenue 2465 because of road work. Traffic sponsored by Robert Half. 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring today. Robert Half is here to help. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today. I'm Matt Bear. Follow us for instant traffic updates at WIBC Traffic.
Nobody cares for you like family. Family Heating and Air.
Hi, this is Malia with Family Heating and Air, and as a mom myself, I know it's really important to keep the kiddos healthy. Air quality, humidity, those are super big issues on my concern list. If you share any of these concerns, give family a call, 317-577-8077.
Family Heating and Air is your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Design it before you buy it. For a limited time, receive 50% off all products, plus special manufacturer rebates and 20 months, no interest, no payments.
Trust me.
The forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
Some dense morning fog that will lift here shortly. We're partly cloudy this afternoon, a high of 52. Cloudy skies, scattered rain and snow tonight, up to an inch northeast of Indy, a low of 25. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8's Marcus Bailey, 93 WIBC.
42 and sunny on Monument Circle. I'm Kurt Darling, on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
You're listening to Rob Kendall.
When we talk about sending money somewhere, we're talking about printing the money because we have no money.
And Casey Daniels.
My government would never lie to me, would they?
On 93 WIBC.
Good morning. It is Friday, February 23rd, 6 minutes after 9. You're listening to Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC. Congratulations. You made it to Friday. Give yourself a big pat on the back.
Did you ever wonder how we've survived this long as a nation? Like, seriously, given the genuinely stupid, visionless people who represent this country on all levels, have you ever wondered how we have survived this long as a society and actually done this well?
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. I was just pondering that last night as I was watching a Ben Franklin documentary. You know, he's the only man to be on three very important documents: the Declaration of Independence, the peace agreement with England, and also the Constitution. But they were saying in that documentary that it was the Founding Fathers' goal, specifically Ben Franklin's goal. They never would have thought that the country would still have been around this long, because his goal was just to be able to try the experiment.
Right.
And how shocked they would be that it's still going.
You know, it truly is a pat on the back to the incredible people who have lived in this country, who, despite being stymied by absolute morons who run society, have managed to make this country what it is today. It is truly a tribute to the just brilliant, wonderful, amazing people who have been a part of our society in this very fabulous, what do we call it, 240-ish year experiment now at this point. Because, my goodness, Casey, we have some just embarrassingly stupid people running our country.
Well, it's either that or it's a recognition to how much the American people will tolerate.
Yeah, and by the way, I'd like to point out, I'm only ranting to begin the show because you said, man, I'm just not passionate about anything on the template today.
No, I just, there's some stories out there that are just,
and I said,
I wasn't loving it.
Then allow me to lead, Casey, and we won't get into full detail on this right now. We'll go into a little more detail later. But I'm just a glutton for punishment, and I probably need to seek help, and I probably need to have an intervention of some sort.
Well, that's affirmative.
Well, I went to I don't know why I do this anymore. It never ends well, and I just always feel worse about humanity. But I went to that Brownsburg Town Council meeting last night.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting in the back, and I'm watching this unfold, and Glenn Adams, who is a good friend of mine, is up there, and he's a very intelligent person. But the other four up there on that dais, I mean, I'm watching this going, my goodness, this is the best a town of 30,000 people has to offer. Because in addition to being genuinely stupid, these four wizards of smart, no doubt Mensa members in training, I mean, they're just totally visionless. The things they're saying, the things they're accepting from developers, like, it is just like, and then I extrapolate this. Look at who runs the state.
Yeah.
Look at who is the governor of the state of Indiana. Look at who the Speaker of the House is. Look at who the pro tem of the Senate is. Then let's take it to Washington, D.C. Look at who the President of the United States is. How with these people in communities and in states and running the country all across the board.
How we survived.
Like, if you were to, let's take 50 governors, 50 states. Okay, DeSantis, pretty sharp dude, all right? Abbott, probably kind of okay.
A lot of people like Youngkin.
Youngkin's probably a reasonably intelligent human being. Noam is probably all right. I mean, we're struggling to get to 5. These are governors. These are people. I mean, there was a time, my dear friend Jay Baker is an indie radio legend, and kind of my mentor. And I used to have this conversation when I first made the grave mistake of getting involved in politics, that there was a time where politics, the leaders of communities were once seen as people who were the most noble amongst us. And to go back to what you said about a Benjamin Franklin, you think about the brilliant, how in 240 years have we devolved from Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin and George Washington and James Madison? How have we devolved from that to the level of stupid that runs society all across the board? It was only 240 years, Casey. 240 years we have gone from Ben Franklin to Eric Holcomb. That is incredible. That is incredible, Casey.
Yes, and Jim Merritt even said yesterday, at one point politicians were revered.
Yes. I mean, there was I just was sitting back there last night, and I was just watching this, and it is like the level of untrustworthiness, the level of stupid, the level of uncreative, and it is like I feel so bad for my good friend Glenn Adams because he has to sit up there with those four, and it is like I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he hasn't had he's only been there for 2 months, and I'm just watching this, and it is like we are screwed because newsflash, the Brownsburg Town Council and the products and the people they're producing is not unique to Central Indiana. It's not unique to the state of Indiana. It's not unique to the country. Like, these are the people. These are the people that are making the choices. And somehow, Casey, we have sustained ourselves in spite, not because. Imagine if we had good people making the choices. Imagine if we had someone decent in the governor's mansion down the street from us, or at the State House. Imagine if we had people who knew what was going on and had vision and actually put the people first. Imagine if those people were actually running society, how much we would thrive.
Well, let's talk about your president really quick. His administration now going to impose a new slate of sanctions on more than 500 different targets in Russia. This is in response to the death of Alexei Navalny, and this is on the eve of the 2-year invasion of Russia into Ukraine, right? And I bring this up because yesterday Biden was meeting with Navalny's widow, and I think we have a new Valvet.
Oh, yeah, she probably has a hard to pronounce name, doesn't she? It's never like Sarah.
It's Yulia.
Yeah, okay, that's not Sarah.
Right. That's not Sarah, but it's Yulia.
It's not Jane.
Right.
Yulia?
Yulia. Yeah.
That sounds like kind of a Russian name.
And I think with maybe a little practice, you could probably get
I've already
down.
got it right. Yulia.
Right.
I've heard it for 20 seconds and I'm getting it right.
And what did our president call her?
I bet he didn't call her Yulia.
He did not. No. Number 2, Jason.
If I could just pass on a few words to the entire team in Intuitive Machines at Superbad.
That's a moon landing.
I had the honor of meeting with
we landed on the moon, by the way,
wife
yesterday.
and daughter. One thing that was made clear to me is that Yolanda she's gonna continue to.
There it is.
Did he call her Yolanda?
He called her Yolanda. So to your point, that's who's leading the country.
What? Casey,
there's pictures of him hugging her.
Yolanda.
And he can't even get her name right.
Look, my hearing is, after 22 years of having very loud things pumped into my ears on a daily basis, my hearing is not what it once was. He did call her Yolanda, right?
He did.
One thing that was made clear to me is that Yolanda she's gonna continue to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad that you played that, because does that not just prove the rant that I just had?
That's why we played it. To your point, that's the guy who's leading the country. He's trying to make a point, going to impose sanctions on all of these people, oligarchs in Russia, trying to get back at Putin, and he's hugging the opposition's widow who was, recently died, and he can't even get her name right.
I just I fear for this country, Casey. And it's like I can't, I have a 3-year plan to get out of that hellhole I live out on the west side.
You're going to move into one of the 224 apartments that are being
264, Casey, don't sell it short.
264.
And we'll go into detail on just that little charade that took place last night in a little bit. But I watch these things that are going on, and I look at our society, and I look at it as somebody who was once up there, and the way I handled it, and it's just, who's going to save us?
You think it's going to be the guy who was holding Nancy Pelosi's hand as they were walking across the tarmac together? You think about
walking? One of the great things about America has been that at times we have needed it the most, there's always been some white knight to ride to the rescue, whether it was from the inception, George Washington leading the Continental Army, then becoming the first president. You want to, head forward, whatever it would be, 70-ish years, Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s. To a certain extent, we saw FDR, at least on a military side. He was a complete disaster on a domestic front. And then extrapolate that for Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. We've always had that that person. There have been other presidents who have done great things, but there's always been that person who has stood up and said, I will take America on my shoulders and I will be the visionary that this country needs, that everybody else can run behind and run with and run on a platform of and have the same similar ideals, and we will move America out of whatever muck and mire we are entrenched in. Where does that come from? Who is the next person? Because I don't see that person out there.
Well,
Casey.
I think a lot of people think it's Donald Trump.
Is it, though? Didn't he have
I think he thinks it's him.
But he had the opportunity to be that. And while Trump was a decent president, was he that? Was he a visionary the way the people that I had described and kind of how they I mean, look at what happened under Trump to America in 2020. Do you think if Reagan had been president, COVID, that would have happened under President Reagan? I mean, I fear, now Lincoln certainly would have done it. He jailed journalists and shut down newspapers, et cetera. But I am so worried about the direction of this country, Casey. And you opened the door by saying, I'm not really passionate about anything on the template. And I said, well, I sure am.
Okay, well, we're going to move on, shall we?
Yes.
Okay, it's Kendall Casey. It's 93 WIBC.
Fed rate cut plans have reduced mortgage rates more than a full point and dropping. If you've been wanting to sell, now is the time. Maximize your home sales price with the agent and team I recommend, Mark Dietel. Maybe you're worried about settling for less money with a low ball instant offer. Mark Dietel guarantees your home sold at a mutually agreed upon price and deadline, or he will buy it. Listen to what Claire and Gary in Danville had to say about working with Mark Dietel. We were retiring and moving to Florida. Our home in Danville was on the market for almost a year with our previous agent. We hired Mark Dietel and things got changed fast. We got an offer we thought we would never get. Mark and his team were a lifesaver. Call the agent I trust and recommend and the agent who guarantees your home sold or he'll buy it. Call Mark Dietel at 317-755-4232 for all the details or go online to markdietel.com. That's Mark, Dietel.com.
Historic election
happening now.
Here. Right here.
We have to do what's good for our party.
How badly the Democrats want to run against Donald Trump.
She had a very bad night.
What happens between now and South Carolina?
Every time I've run for office in South Carolina.
South Carolina, where I think we're going to win easily.
I've beaten the political establishment.
Happens here.
I did hear.
Your 2024 election information station, 93 WIBC. Our country is being invaded. Thousands pour across the southern border every day, bringing fentanyl and violence. Who's to blame? Career politicians like Jim Banks. As a member of Congress, Jim Banks said that Indiana needed an influx of immigration. Jim Banks campaigned with political insiders like Paul Ryan and is endorsed by Mitch McConnell, who sabotaged the building of Trump's border wall. Jim Banks has betrayed Indiana on the border.
I'm John Rust, and I'm running to be your next United States Senator. I'm a farmer, businessman, and political outsider. In the wake of the continued invasion of our border, I have challenged Jim Banks to join me in signing a pledge to remove Mitch McConnell as Republican leader in the United States Senate. It has become absolutely clear that a vote for Jim Banks is a vote for Mitch McConnell. I am John Rust. I approve this message because I'll vote to remove Mitch McConnell and make sure Trump's border wall actually gets built from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean.
Paid for by John Rust for U.S. Senate.
That moment when you realize your furnace is stone cold busted. We're talking a real put on every sweater you own, I can't feel my feet, penguin predicament. But fear not, there's an expert for that.
Right now, get a furnace for free when you purchase an air conditioner from Broad Ripple Service Experts.
Like it toasty? There's an expert for that.
Call Broad Ripple Service Experts at 866-EXPERTS. See website for license details.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 5 GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
Spend an evening with James Taylor.
and his all-star band. The American icon is back on tour, June 11th at Ruoff Music Center. The multiple Grammy Award-winning James Taylor and a night full of his biggest hits. Reserve seats on sale Friday at 10 a.m. at livenation.com. James Taylor, part of the Coors Light Concert Series.
Indy's leader in patio installation is now offering a new driveway package. Schedule a free estimate today at IndyDecorativeConcrete.com. That's IndyDecorativeConcrete.com.
You're listening to the Kendall and Casey Show.
Good morning, Vietnam!
On 93 WIPC.
Here's something that'll make a lot of people happy. 21 minutes after 9 with Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC. So, bill was approved lifting a decades-long ban on happy hour in the great state of Indiana. That happened this week, House Bill 1086. It's now going to allow restaurants to sell alcoholic beverages for reduced prices during designated parts of the day.
So, this is a great opportunity to point out how corrupt government is and what a stranglehold on common sense government has, because this has been going on since the mid-'80s, I think.
Yeah.
And so
since 1985.
So you have a product in Indiana which for 40 years has been legal, alcohol. But you have to get a license to sell the legal product. So this product's legal, but you have to have a license to sell this legal product. And if you get a license to sell this legal product, we're going to limit how you can sell the legal product.
Yeah. There are still restrictions on happy hour, by the way.
Does that, wait, before we go to, does that make any sense to anyone? Because how I just described it is accurate on what it is. A legal product that only select people can sell if they're blessed by the government. And if you're blessed by the government to sell this legal thing, then we're going to dictate when and where you can sell the legal thing if we give you the golden ticket to the...
right, which you have to apply for. Yeah. And then you have to pay for the license.
Jason, you worked in the alcohol serving industry for quite a while in various shape, forms, and fashions.
That's what we called it.
That's... Those liquor licenses are like gold, aren't they?
Oh yeah. You can't just open up a bar, as everybody knows. You've got to find that golden ticket, find somebody that went bankrupt and needs the money. Which, after COVID was quite wasn't too bad in Indiana. You could find one.
So think about that. You and it is, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong. There's often a level of connection or I guess I'll do air quotes, luck here based on who gets those liquor licenses, right?
Right.
I mean, it's
all fair, above board, I'm sure. I've never applied for one, but I've been told that it's pretty fair and everybody gets an equal shot.
Yeah,
at it.
right. So I'll bring us full circle. They've got this legal product that only select people get to sell. Conveniently, it just always seems to maybe be a select group of people that often end up with the ability to sell the thing. And then if you get the luck to be able to sell the thing, then we're going to dictate when and where you can sell and how you can sell the thing.
Right, and the terms to it. For example, you can't do carry-out drinks. There's specific hours of the day which you're allowed to do happy hour now, and you have to have $500,000 worth of liquor liability insurance to get that permit.
This is all so stupid, and we allow this. So, theme of the show, right? What did we talk about first segment? Second segment, how stupid this all is. Does that make any sense to anyone? Does that make any sense to anyone, what we have just described to you?
Likely due to Rob's shenanigans and Broad Ripples. Like, people can't control themselves. They're trying to lift the parking garage arm and everything, so we're going to have to put some restrictions in because of Rob.
Blame it all on him. Okay, so Kid Rock was on the Joe Rogan show the other day, and they were talking about, this all ties together, they were, of course, talking about Bud Light. Yeah. And Joe Rogan was asking him what it's like to be the guy who took out Bud Light, because you remember that video of Kid Rock.
He shot the Bud Light.
Shooting up the Bud Light. He says that he has since made up with the Bud Light people, the Anheuser-Busch people, but yet he's still not going to take their money, although he will drink their beer.
And at the end of the day, I was like, guys, I don't feel right taking your money. I was like, I go, we can continue the conversation, see where it ends up, but honestly, I don't want any corporate deals. I don't feel right. There's not a penny on earth that could make me change who I am or have people look at me in a different way.
Right.
Even though it's probably half the country at this point that likes me and the other half wants to put a bullet in me. Like, I understand that. There's no he's okay.
Right.
I've destroyed that. There's no, Kid Rock's okay. It's either I fucking hate that kid
or I love that dude.
Yeah, I'll take a bullet for him.
Yeah.
But, we still talk. And
that's a better place to be, honestly.
And like I said, you know what I mean? They fucked up. And when you get to the grassroots of it, that's what they did. And there's so many people that work for that company, and you know all the stuff they've done. We don't have to be a broken record here.
It's a great company.
Right. And
they've done amazing things. Anheuser-Busch is an amazing charitable company that they do a lot of great things.
Yeah, and I dug into that, and I was educated on it. Even before Dana called me about his deal and things like that, people discussed with me. I did a little digging and talked to people. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, they got the message. Like, I'm not someone who holds a grudge his whole life. You know what I mean?
So here's the thing.
He does seem like someone who holds a grudge his whole life, doesn't he?
He really needs to. I get it. He's on a podcast, but good job, Jason. There was a lot of swear words in there.
I was sweating that one. Had my finger on the dump button.
Good
there,
for
ready
you.
to go. Yeah.
Can we point out real quick, this is Jason's last day with us.
Is Kevin back on
Kevin's
Monday?
back. Well, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't heard from Kevin.
Have you heard from Kevin?
Haven't heard from Kevin in several days.
No.
But Jason, what a great job Jason has done.
He has done a great job.
And Jason has actually raised the bar, because let's face it, Kevin had kind of lower. Let's face it, Kev was kind of half-assing it these past couple
Do
months.
you think it's fair to talk about Kevin while he's not here?
Oh, totally.
He can't defend
I would
himself.
expect you to do it to me. I'm just kidding. But no, Jason has done a great job and very wonderful, and we've been very lucky to have him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got to get you updated on the news. It is Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC.
Hi, this is Jiffy Lube owner Steve Sanner. Jiffy Lube is a one-stop shop for all your car's maintenance needs to operate safely and efficiently. At Jiffy Lube, we believe knowledge is power. Our Jiffy Lube teams don't do repair work, but our focus is on becoming your go-to guys for all your manufacturer's recommended maintenance. So while we are still the fastest team in town, cars and trucks need a lot more than oil changes. Tires need to be rotated, wipers, belts, lights, and filters wear out, brake parts need to be replaced. Why make yourself deal with 2 or 3 different shops just to take proper care of your car? It's way easier to join the million Hoosiers every year who drive into Jiffy Lube and drive out with the peace of mind that their car is safe and working well. We are a one-stop shop for all the maintenance your car will ever need.
The go-to guys for all your car's recommended maintenance needs. Jiffy Lube.
I had changed the locks, didn't even know where she was living. And then one night she calls to say she's getting treatment. Can I drive? I almost hung up. But then I thought, that's my kid. I chose to put away the hurt and the fear and just see my girl.
Addiction is a disease. Standing by a loved one as they fight it will test your faith, patience, and sanity. But it's possible when you see the person, not just their disease. Learn more at cbeyondtheaddiction.org.
You never know if the person next to you in line is a McMuffin, a McGriddles, biscuit, or burrito person. But what you do know is that every last one of us in line for our McDonald's breakfast this morning were brave enough to get out of bed a few minutes early.
No matter what you order at McDonald's, you know you're in line for something delicious. And with options like the steak, egg, and cheese bagel, sausage McMuffin with egg, or egg McMuffin, there are no wrong choices. At participating McDonald's.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Clamping down. Radar is clear. It is sunny and 43 on Monument Circle. I'm Kurt Darling. Here's what's trending at 9:30. The U.S. is imposing more than 500 new sanctions on Russia. The Treasury Department says that the move marks the most sanctions that on Russia since they invaded Ukraine 2 years ago, and their aim is to punish Moscow's war machine and those who held responsible for the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The talks are about to continue over a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Paris. Fox's Ryan Schmelz.
The Israeli War Cabinet has agreed to send a delegation to Paris for ceasefire and hostage talks this weekend. Axios reports talks will include CIA Director Bill Burns, the Prime Minister of Qatar, and the Egyptian spy chief. The Biden administration has been pushing for a deal before the start of Ramadan in less than 3 weeks. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
The U.S. has landed a spacecraft on the moon for the first time in over 50 years. The Odysseus lander from the Texas company Intuitive Machines had a successful touchdown on the lunar surface Thursday. Your opening bell report on 93 WYBC brought to you by Absolute Wealth Management, LLC. Another good start to close out the week. The Dow was up 110 at the opening bell to 39,233. The NASDAQ up 60 to 18,107. And the S&P 500 is up 17 to 5,115. I'm Kurt Darling on the level, on the go, and on WYBC.com.
Discussing end-of-life matters can be uncomfortable, but it's also necessary to ensure that loved ones' wishes are well known ahead of time. This is Tina McIntosh, president of Joy's House and co-host of the Caregiver Crossing radio program. Up next, I'll share suggestions to help ease anxiety surrounding the talk.
Why Adult Day services? Because no matter how much you love someone, there are times when you need a break and someone to help. Let Joy's House be that someone for you.
Direct, open, and honest conversation is the best way to discuss end-of-life wishes. Knowing your loved one's preferred treatments and desired arrangements will ready everyone for when the time comes. Also helpful, creating a will or trust to ensure assets are distributed accordingly. And consider an end-of-life doula to assist your family during the process. More tips like this are available anytime at caregivercrossingradio.org. With new weekly content created by Joy's House and distributed in partnership with Network Indiana, we're an on-air and online support group for Hoosier family caregivers. Hear conversations with experts, access a library of online education, and more at caregivercrossingradio.org.
Inside Indiana Business Radio, the news you need to get ahead. Indiana's business news leader, weekdays at 6:32 a.m. and 5:56 p.m. on WIBC.
You're listening to the Kendall and Casey Show on 93 WIBC.
Good morning. It is 9:32. It's Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC. You got something that you wanted to talk about?
Well,
some tweet?
I saw this. Somebody tweeted at me at Rob M. Kendall on Twitter. Casey's over at Casey Daniels 317 on Twitter. And I just thought, man, this is perfect because this is everything we have been telling you about what's going on at the State House and the people running for public office as it relates to the issue that you, the public, have identified as the number one issue.
According to those surveys.
Right. Now, don't take our word for it. That's the senators sent out surveys. Those surveys were released, and overwhelmingly, according to Nikki Kelly at the Capitol Chronicle, property taxes were the number one issue.
Yep.
And we've been telling you for 2 years now, it's not that they can't fix the property tax issue, which you are clearly demanding that the lawmakers fix the problem they've created. They don't want to fix the issue because they fear local government people more than you. And here is a phenomenal example. So this is why, like, when I got sideways with Curtis Hill over the property tax thing, and saying I really kind of want to like that guy and want to not only vote for him, but like support him and lean into supporting him because I think Curtis would be really good on a lot of things. Can't do it yet because he didn't have an answer for property taxes.
Nope, he said he wanted to look into it.
The number one issue, we've heard it for 2 years. It's in these, citizen surveys that are coming back, and nobody has an answer for it. Curtis doesn't have an answer for it. Suzanne certainly didn't have an answer for it. Doden didn't have an answer for it. Braun has no answer for it. He was totally flippant in the beginning, and then people started giving him the business, and then he came with on Hammer and Nigel, some mealy-mouthed, bizarro non-answer. Chambers I haven't heard word one from. So you have none of these people that are talking about the issue. How is that possible, Casey?
Because they're not listening.
Hey, that's got to be it, right? And they're not, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier. Visionless people. Our country is run by visionless people, and it's going to take vision, and it's going to take a backbone of steel to solve the property tax problem. Because number one, it's going to take a backbone for somebody to look at the local governments and go, you people are totally out of control again. Which is why the property taxes were put in place to begin with, because the local governments were out of control and couldn't be trusted. And once again, local governments are back to being out of control and can't be trusted. That's number one. Number two, it's going to take a vision because you got to get the assessment issue under control, or you've got to say we're getting out of the assessment game, which is best, because people shouldn't be taxed on something they're not monetizing.
Right.
And so I got this tweet from a listener, and he said, at the county GOP breakfast, our state rep and senator were there. Question on property taxes. Response was, Indiana is one of the lowest property tax states around. First of all, that's categorically untrue.
Mm-hmm.
We just revealed a couple days ago, Wallet Hub did a big study on this.
Yep.
Right in the middle.
It's we're at 21.
Yeah, we're the 21st best. So you're not one of the lowest around. And especially when you factor in all the other taxes that they've raised, et cetera, since the property tax caps were put in place. Everybody needs to remember, it wasn't like they just did some big cut to local governments, schools primarily. Remember, when they capped the property taxes, they raised your sales tax to pay teachers. So they really just shifted taxes. They didn't even lower taxes to begin with. So now you have the sales tax increases and the enhancement in property taxes. But this is a reminder, the Republicans do not care. The Republican Party knows what the number one issue to you is. They know you're hurting. They know elderly people and fixed income people are about to have to make very hard choices on whether they can afford to stay in their homes for something they're not even monetizing. And they are publicly telling you, no, it doesn't matter that you're hurting. No, it doesn't matter that this is the number one issue to you. We don't care. And the only way people are going to care, and again, I come back to this, and everybody knows I love the guy and think the world of him, but this is why the Micah thing is so important for Lieutenant Governor. Because Micah Beckwith will absolutely, if he goes in there without debate, without discussion, make property tax reform a center part of the GOP platform and discussion in 2025. If they don't want to do it, he will have a bully pulpit to continue to tell people how they're letting you down. But none of these governor candidates, other than Jamie Rittenauer, kind of had some ideas on it that were interesting. You know who does have ideas on it? Donald Rainwater. Donald Rainwater has specific plans on how to, isn't that pathetic? The libertarian guy the likely libertarian nominee for governor, has more of a plan to address the issue that is number one to Republican voters than any of these Republicans do.
So is this a case of these people just are not connecting with the voters, or they're not listening, or it's too much of a project to get into? They just don't want to deal with it. And why is that representative who said that Indiana has one of the lowest property taxes in the country? Why are they saying that? Like, we don't have the ability to research that information and put it out there? That no, we actually don't. We rank 21.
Well, our theme for the show today, as we started with, is stupid, lazy, and visionless.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's local governments like that hellhole I live in on the west side, Warehouseburg, or it's the state house, or it's the federal government. Stupid, lazy, and visionless. In order to fix the property tax issue, you can't be any of those things. You have to be smart. You have to know the lay of the land and how to be able to yet provide basic vital services, yet get the excessive, ridiculous government, under wraps. You can't be lazy. You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to work. You're going to educate constituents. You're going to have to educate people so that they say, little Johnny isn't going to be at risk of dying in a hallway of an active shooter if we don't, have these out of control property taxes, or little Johnny will still be able to learn to read if we don't have these out of control property taxes. It is and visionless. You have to have the vision on how you're going to do it and sell it to people. And you know what all that stuff involves, Casey? It involves work. It involves work. It involves getting off your ass and actually putting effort in for people. And these guys don't want to do it, and it's our fault because we don't make them do it.
It is 9:39. You're listening to Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC. So the vice president was in Grand Rapids yesterday. She was talking about abortion access, and she was claiming that it would be lost under a second Trump term. So you could tell right away what her goals are. But while she was there, I thought this was kind of interesting. She was very uninterested in answering questions that weren't from pre-selected reporters. And she had note cards in front of her, and you can actually hear it. She's done talking, and then her handler says, okay, press can leave the room now before we take more questions. Check this out.
We look forward to continuing the conversation, but this does conclude our press portion of the dialogue. So we'll ask the press to leave the room, and we'll continue the off-the-record.
Can we get a picture with everybody facing this way?
So the press can leave the room, and then we'll continue the dialogue.
Isn't that just so revealing about, I've seen this happen many, many times in, like with elected officials. I've had this before. I'll talk to you off the record.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk to you off. What do you mean you'll talk to me off the record? Now, if you have some,
right, what is that?
If you're a source in a story, that's totally understandable, and that happens quite a bit. But you're not being a source in a story. You're an elected official.
She's there at a public event.
Yes.
Promoting her narrative, her talking points, things that she wants to happen, yet she's not going to talk to the press until she's not going to talk to anybody, leave the room, and then we'll continue the dialogue.
Right. Because it's harder to manipulate if you have to do it in public, Casey.
There you
right?
go.
I mean,
right.
That's the answer.
There you go. Okay, so, she's the border czar. You remember
That's
that?
right. She's doing a heck of a job.
Right.
Heck of a job.
But she did have some... she had some time to go shopping.
And so I know you want to know what I bought. So you want to know that I got the George Clinton doll. Does everybody know who George Clinton is? Do you know P-Funk? No. Okay, well, there is lessons to be taught, like Bootsy Collins. Anybody know who Bootsy Collins is? Okay, so there's some education that needs to be done. I can see that. I got a Miles Davis album and then a couple of cards.
So she's giving you everything that she bought while she was in Grand Rapids. Priorities. Bootsy? We're here to educate.
It's kind of okay.
So this is what your vice president is doing. Rather than visiting the southern border or working on things.
I long thought this. I thought this long before I got into politics and government, and then once I did, it was just magnified by a million. I used to sit around. It's part of the reason I had to get out of it, because it was just thrown in my face on a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute basis. You look at the people that are, like, the power that someone like Kamala Harris has. I mean, she's an idiot, Casey.
Which is why she needed note cards to talk to the press.
If you met her working at a department store
before kicking them out,
you would ask for someone else to please help you, because, I mean, there is no way she would give you any sort of decent customer service. And yet, whether it's Kamala, I mean, just look at the list. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Mm-hmm. Look at this endless list of people who have attained this immense wealth and power. And why aren't more people angry about that? That people who you are in listener land, infinitely smarter than these people, infinitely harder workers, and yet we just kind of accept that these are the people that make the choices.
And that goes back to the point we made in our very first break when we were talking right at 9 o'clock, was this is what we have.
Yes.
It's what we're tolerating.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's how much we're tolerating.
100%.
Yeah. It is Kendall Casey. It's 93 WIBC.
Coming up on Tony Katz today, some Republicans want a discharge petition to force the House to vote for Ukraine funding. Is this a good idea? That's after the news at noon on 93 WIBC.
Chuck loves the word grit. And I think he saw that in his father because his dad worked very hard.
Dorn Goodrich on family and her son, Chuck Goodrich.
We struggled. We had 4 children. We both worked, but we always paid our bills.
Chuck Goodrich was raised in a working class home focused on faith, sacrifice, and a strong work ethic. As a young man, Chuck Goodrich worked at a gas station and a pizza shop. To pay his way through Purdue, Chuck worked at a campground, living in a tent one summer to save more money.
I said, but son, where are you going to live? He said, well, I got a tent and I'm going to stay in that tent. He was willing to do whatever it took.
Now, Chuck Goodrich's sacrifice, grit, and relentless work ethic have paid off. Goodrich employs 2,000 people at Gaylor Electric.
He wants people to succeed because God gave him a heart for people.
Chuck Goodrich, conservative leader, Hoosier Heart.
I'm Chuck Goodrich, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Go with Chuck Goodrich Committee.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Garage door problems? Call today for service today. Garage Doors of Indianapolis has been solving garage door problems for 33 years. Call today for service today. 875-4577. Garage Doors of Indianapolis services all makes of garage doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call today for service today. Get it fixed right now. Call Garage Doors of Indianapolis at 875-4577 or visit doorstoday.com.
In the morning, call 875-4577. Service today.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
13 minutes away from 10, it is Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC. Did you watch the game last night, Rob?
Which one?
The IU women's basketball game.
No, Casey, I didn't. You know why I didn't?
Because it was on Peacock and you don't have that?
I do have the Peacock. I didn't watch the game because, and we'll get to this in a little bit, I was busy just subjecting myself to just unimaginable torture of having to attend the Brownsburg Town Council meeting last night. And I just, look, if I didn't know it made them so miserable for them to have to listen to me speak for 6 minutes every 2 weeks, I'd stop going. But at this point, I mean, my goal is to get out of there as fast as I possibly can. But in the meantime, I just want to make them as miserable as I possibly can and point out to everyone who hears this voice. Now, some people say there's no one listening. Some people say there's tens of thousands of people listening. Whichever one it is, 0 or tens of thousands, just to point out to as many people as possible to stay away from Brownsburg. If you own a business, don't go there. If you want to build something, don't go there. If you want to buy a house, don't go there because those people don't care about you at all. No, I didn't watch the game last night.
You did not watch the game last night. I didn't watch the game last night either because I don't have the Peacock and I wasn't ready to.
You really?
Yeah, I wasn't.
It's $5.99 a month, Casey.
I wasn't ready to add another streaming service to pay for it. I figured I could just watch the highlights on the internet.
With the amount of money you make, that is 2 minutes of work. 2 minutes of work? You can't just do 2 minutes
I love how you
a month.
exaggerate.
2 minutes a month? Okay, so, but I'm shocked you don't have that because you're such a Notre Dame football fan.
Yeah, you'd think that I would.
And I
right?
think there's a couple of games each year that are on the Peacock only experience.
Yeah.
I actually think Peacock, if for all the stream price per service.
You think it's the best
I think
one?
Peacock is the best and it's not even close.
So the the Iowa women's team has seen an increase of 162% in their average sold ticket price for home and regular games compared to last year since Caitlin Clark. The average ticket price has increased 207% since she joined the team in 2020. I knew she wasn't going to beat Pistol Pete's record last night, but
yes, that's correct.
She's getting closer. She was 99 points away.
Okay, but again,
4 games left.
Look, this is not even a close. By the way, did you see how much tickets were going for to the IU game last night?
Yeah, it was like over $200, and the line was really, really long.
And I don't think those were for good seats, Casey.
Yeah, they was sold out.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't say.
Yes.
I think that's the premise of this segment. Let's just cut the crap with the Pistol Pete, Caitlin Clark comparisons.
You don't think she'll make it?
Pistol Pete? No, it's not whether she makes it or not. It's about whether these two things are even comparable. Number one, Pistol Pete only played 3 years because freshmen didn't play when Pistol Pete was at LSU. And number two, there wasn't a 3-point line. Pistol Pete would have scored 9 million points.
Gotcha.
Now, Pistol Pete was a ball hog. He was a terrible teammate. They didn't win while he was there. But all of that aside, these two things are not remotely comparable.
These are not the same. Okay, so Caitlin Clark, she's averaging 32 points per game, but last night IU held her to only 24 points.
And I kind of view Caitlin Clark the way I view Taylor Swift. I'm just over hearing about her.
Mm-hmm. Are you?
Well, she's a flopper and a whiner, and it's like every game, the whole thing centers on her.
Mm-hmm.
And
they shut her down.
I mean, look, granted, she's the best player, but if you go to a men's basketball game, I'm thinking about like IU during their heyday. So Calbert Chaney, I don't know if he still is. He was the all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten, played for Bob Knight in the early 90s. All those great teams went to a Final Four, went to the Elite Eight. Calbert Chaney was, I think he still may be, the all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten. When you would watch an IU game in the mid-90s, of course they're going to mention and have a lot of coverage of Calbert Chaney. He was their best player. He was the all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten. But the whole game wasn't about Calbert Chaney. They were still talking about the other players. IU has a ton of good players.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole broadcast almost is about Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of seeing her. I'm sick of hearing about her. And clearly, IU got her number.
Yeah, they did. They shut her down. I would love to hear from somebody who went to that game. 317-684-8444 is the number. Of course, IU.
Don't you have fatigue hearing about this woman at this point?
Well, you know what? Here's where I am. I like to see, women be successful in sports, and that's what she's doing. I think she's elevating the game. She's elevating awareness of the game, and the thing I really want, I just want her to be normal. Like, I want to be able to root for someone, and I just want them to be normal.
That wasn't the question I asked you, though. Your Honor, I asked the witness to answer the question.
No, I'm not sick of hearing about
really?
it. No.
Oh, the commercials and everything, and the whole game
I
is
just said I'm supporting women in sports.
But you can still support. There's 9 other women on the court at any given time, Casey. Wouldn't you like to support them?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, but you can't because it's all about her. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Rising tide raises all boats.
She's rising her own tide in her own boat. She doesn't care about any other the boats in the ocean. The boats could be sinking. People could be drowning, and it would all be about her.
And they're just throwing her a life jacket, nobody else?
It's the same thing with Taylor Swift. If it had been, hey, music star Taylor Swift is dating Travis Kelce. She goes to the games. We show her once a game. If he scores a touchdown, cool, fine, whatever. But when it becomes 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 times a game, yeah, I'm going to turn against you because that's overexposure and that's gross.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, that Taylor Swift knows that she's overexposed. She seems to be having a much lower profile recently. Did you hear, and you know what? I kind of think we should wait until Kevin comes back, but I can't. We've got to talk about this. Red Lobster in trouble. Do you remember we had that conversation?
Red Lobster's in trouble.
Do you remember we had the conversation, the all-you-can-eat shrimp buffet?
Yes.
And Kevin was like, I'm going to go.
And then he wimped out, didn't he?
And then he never went.
Yeah, because you offered to go with him, right?
I did, but they're dropping it, clearly, because of the huge, deep losses that the company sustained because of that. They're still trying to dig out of it. They're citing a $19 million loss because of the all-you-can-eat shrimp buffet.
Okay.
And they're switching it now. They're trying something different. They're going to do an all-you-can-eat lobster buffet.
Oh, that sounds even more expensive.
I would think so.
Jason, you've worked in the drink service / food service industry, and now it's not really...
We've established that.
Yes, the size of the... I didn't think we were going to get to that mentioned twice in the first hour, but it wasn't any place the size of a Red Lobster, but
Not as formal either, no, not at all.
Yeah, not quite the menu selection either.
Did you have Cheddar Bay biscuits?
But don't organizations, bars, restaurants, etc., do this because it's like a loss leader? Like, we know we're going to lose on you, but if you buy enough drinks or other people don't engage in this thing, we'll make money off them and it'll come out ahead.
It's like the $8.99 strip dinner at the Gentleman's Club. Yeah, strip steak is what I meant to say.
The club is losing money on that, but they're banking on you're going to spend enough money elsewhere, tipping the staff generously, that you'll make it back. So apparently Red Lobster was not able to loss leader with this.
No.
If they're pulling the plug on it.
They are. In June of last year, they said that this is going to be a permanent menu item, and they, throughout the course of the last 6 months of last year, they kept raising the price of it. $20, $22, $25. and they were hoping that it would generate some new traffic, but it did not, and they took a huge loss on it. And then starting this past week, and this is a while supplies last, they're doing this promotion where 150 people, 150 nationwide, are going to have a chance for Red Lobster's all-you-can-eat lobster. And they start out with Maine lobster, and you get like 15 lobsters.
Wait,
but then they switch it to Caribbean lobster.
Can we come back to something for a second? So you said it got up to $25.99 at one point. What is a piece of shrimp called? Like, how much shrimp would you have to eat to break even?
A lot.
What does a shrimp, an individual shrimp? I'm not in the shrimp market. Now, I get that there's various degrees of shrimp. Like a St. Elmo shrimp is probably going to cost more than
a Red Lobster shrimp?
Denny's shrimp, right? Or yes, but I'm going to guess Red Lobster is probably a little bit higher end food than, say, a Denny's. I wonder what, for your own money, what would the break-even point be? How many shrimp you would have to actually eat in order to say, I got my money's worth?
I think you should test that theory. You should go to Costco, buy a big bag of the frozen shrimp, and then price it out.
This is a lot of shrimp, and I have a very small freezer, Casey.
Do you even eat shrimp? You seem like a type of guy who doesn't do seafood.
I actually beat Hammer in a shrimp eating contest in this very studio several years ago.
Very good.
And it wasn't even close. I'm actually a shrimp fan.
Okay. Hey, we've got Mark Rutherford joining us next.
Yes, he's gonna have he's gonna kind of educate us on these complaints against Gabriel Whitley and how much trouble Gabe could be in.
All right, that's on the way from 93 WIBC.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this, 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's because they file for their benefits at the wrong time. And $111,000, that could go a long way in retirement. Hey, it's Hammer and Nigel. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits with a free customized Social Security analysis from Bill Demery, your retirement guy, right here in Indy.
If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis right now by calling 317-648-5120. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits, and that money is rightfully yours. Schedule your free Social Security analysis by calling 317-648-5120. 648-5120.
Everyone wants energy that's reliable and affordable. I've been a Duke Energy line worker here in Indiana for almost 20 years. So I'm proud to help deliver that for the people and the communities that matter most to me. With stronger, more resilient systems, better able to stand up to severe weather, and support for local businesses and jobs. It feels good knowing I'm helping build a smarter energy future for all of us.
Paid for by Duke Energy shareholders.
Did you know if you have water, storm, or fire damage, the first step is on you? Yikes. It's your responsibility to mitigate damages. Mitigate? Yeah, that's a fancy word for call Michaelis. They'll take it from there, from boarding up, cleaning up, and fixing up, to getting you squared up with your insurance company, which is a whole other mess you can avoid. Make it Michaelis. Call 844-FIX-INDY.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
Coming up in 2 minutes, the back and forth between warm and cold continues, and Democrats keep hammering on a bill Republicans are insisting upon. That and more coming up from the Technology Recyclers Studios after Fox News. You're listening to 93 WIBC, WIBC HD1 Indianapolis.
Punishing Russia even more. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The day before we mark the 2-year anniversary of the Ukraine invasion, President Biden in a statement says Russian leader Vladimir Putin will pay an even steeper price with more than 500 new sanctions.
For the war and the death of Kremlin opposition leader Alexei Navalny, those sanctions target Russia's financial sector, defense industrial base, and revenue sources across multiple continents. President Biden is also renewing his call for the House to pass an urgently needed military aid package that includes $60 billion for Ukraine's war effort.
That's Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. Now, the Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is in Ukraine now, the day after President Zelensky told Fox they need the American weapons and ammo now.
This price is less than it will be in the future if we'll fallen down and Putin will go to NATO countries. They will pay much more.
The South Carolina Republican primary is tomorrow, and polls show former President Trump could score another big win over Nikki Haley.
Any other day after tomorrow, talking about Republican primaries is a day wasted not talking about Joe Biden.
So Senator Tim Scott tells Fox Haley has to do what he did, drop out of the presidential race and back Trump. She's vowed to keep running. Last night at a religious broadcasters forum in Nashville, former President Trump said,
when I saw these numbers were way ahead, I said, oh, this is going to be painful. I'm going to probably get another 12 indictments in the next week or two. Although they're backfiring.
And his lawyers filed again, trying to get another case dropped.
A federal appeals court rejected claims by former President Trump's attorneys that presidential immunity shields him from charges in the January 6th case, and his team has asked the Supreme Court to intervene. But now his attorneys say immunity applies to keeping classified documents at Mar-a-Lago as well, that he designated those documents as personal under the Presidential Records Act while he was still president.
That's Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. America's listening to Fox News.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Just a little more winter. Radar is clear. It's sunny and 42 downtown. I'm Kirk Darling. Here's what's trending at 10:02. Indiana still grappling with winter and spring.
Spring is starting to get into the air on occasion. Saturday into Sunday will be the biggest change. 30s on Saturday. We'll call it 50s across the region on Sunday.
Alex McGinnis with the National Weather Service says Saturday could also bring some snow as well. Jury deliberations continuing today in the murder trial against Elias Dorsey. He's charged with the murder of Officer Breanne Leith from back in 2020. After 7 hours on Thursday, the jury will get back at it later today. Wayne Township Fire wants to merge with the Indianapolis Fire Department. It's a move that Township trustees say will save the department a ton of money, and Township trustee Jeb Barden says that not much will change if the merger goes through. It still needs the approval of the Indianapolis City County Council. The free world needs to get its act together soon. That's the message from Indiana Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. John Herrick reports.
On Thursday, Spartz spoke to the Europe Parliamentary Assembly, which is represented by more than 50 countries.
Europe is in a major war. It's a war of tyrannies against democracy. China, Russia, and Iran, they team up in a hybrid war.
She also believes it's not just about artillery, it's a cyber war and a war of propaganda. Spartz says the free world needs to do less talking and have better action. John Herrick, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Democrats continue to admonish Republicans in the State House over a bill the GOP says will further protect free speech on college campuses.
And as one who teaches at a university, it became kind of clear to me that a lot of people not spending time on campuses don't really understand what happens there.
State Rep Matt Pierce of Bloomington says college campuses are not places where professors are indoctrinating students into left-wing ideals like some Republicans claim. The IU women with a big upset of Caitlin Clark in the number 4 Iowa Hawkeyes last night, 86-69 the final inside of a sold-out Assembly Hall. I'm Kirk Darling, on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
Got cabin fever? We've got the cure. The Ford 69th Annual Indianapolis Boat, Sport, and Travel Show, February 16th through 18th and 21st through 25th at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Over 750,000 square feet of the latest boats, RVs, power sports, motorcycles, Tackletown USA, travel destinations from across North America, and much more. Save money and buy tickets online at IndySportsShow.com. And don't miss the 26th Annual Indiana Deer, Turkey, and Waterfowl Expo during the final 3 days of the sports show, February 23rd through 25th at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. It's the largest hunting expo in the Midwest, displaying the latest hunting, archery, and waterfowl gear. Hunting outfitters from around the globe. Learn from the pros at the Hunting Seminar Series. Get your deer scored and see the Hoosier Record Book Hall of Fame. One ticket gets you into both shows. For details and to save on tickets, visit IndySportsShow.com. Another Renfro production.
You're listening to Rob Kendall. When we talk about sending money somewhere, we're talking about printing the money because we have no money. And Casey Daniels.
My government would never lie to me, would they?
On 93 WYPC.
The unbelievable story of Gabe Whitley continues. 93 WIBC. It is the Kendall and Casey show. I'm Rob Casey's here. And you know, Casey, for, I guess, 2 days now, we have been talking about this article in the Indiana Capitol Chronicle about Gabrielle Whitley, this 7th congressional district candidate running on the Republican side, who has been accused now of all sorts of things under the sun related to his campaign finance reports. And it is just the most absolute unbelievable story in the entire world.
Well, first of all, let's get the branding right. It is Honest Gabe for Congress. But secondly, we are talking about it multiple times because there are so many different layers to it. And I have reread the article now in the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. I think this is my 4th time reading through it. And every single time I pick up on something new that I have to question.
Now, this has been the last 2 years of my life. I mean, you're seeing it play out in real time because every time you think you figured out something about this guy, a new stone gets, uncovered. And so if you've been hiding under a rock, there were multiple complaints filed against this guy over the past week with the Indiana Election Division, also the Federal Election Commission, including excessive campaign contributions and fraudulent finance reporting. And good luck, Casey. 2 years from now, you'll still be. It's like the X-Files. The truth is out there. I need to know the truth.
Yeah, well, hopefully somebody smarter than us can get to the bottom of it.
Well, I found someone who I think knows a little bit about the IED, the Indiana Election Division, and the Federal Election Commission, because, for everything, we have a guy.
Of course we do.
And it is the great, the fabulous, one of the best attorneys in all of Central Indiana, the great Mark Rutherford. Hello.
Hello, Rob and Casey.
Now, full disclosure, you have been representing my wife.
Yes.
She filed the complaints with the IED and the FEC against Gabe Whitley, and so we want to get that out there.
Sure. Yes.
Have you ever? You've been appointed to boards and commissions by the governor. You've been a part of the Indianapolis scene as an attorney for decades. You've been a political candidate for statewide office. Have you ever, in all your years, seen anything like this Gabe Whitley story?
No, I haven't. All the allegations that are being made, it's just incredible what's going on and what is being alleged that's going on. It's just really a mess. I've never seen anything like this. I've seen things that are not quite good, but usually when they're looked at, they're maybe not as bad as they look or they're minor. But the allegations are pretty stunning.
Casey and I have talked about this a lot. We talked about it with Hammer, obviously. The brazen nature of what appears to have happened. And so I think that is where people go, is this guy just some super outlier? And if he is, how did this go on for this long before? I mean, and look, the only reason he got caught, for lack of a better term, is because we had a legal entanglement with him.
But the Indiana Election Division Commission and the Federal Election Commission, they usually react to people filing complaints. If people don't file complaints, they can't go through all the stuff that they have. They basically do it that way because of that. There's just too much for them to look at everything. Whether that's correct or not, that's a policy for Congress. That's a policy for the Indiana legislature.
Mark Rutherford is our guest, great Central Indiana attorney. We're talking about this Gabe Whitley case, saga, whatever. So you have familiarity with the FEC and the IED.
Yes,
and so I wanted to have you on today so you could, because we've talked about what are the next steps here. So let's start from an FEC perspective, because usually when someone's accused of something, whatever that might be, the federal accusation is often the bigger one. So how does the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, work? Like, my wife sent the complaint to the FEC, and so how do they work? What do they do?
They'll review the complaint, and then they'll contact the person who's the subject of the complaint. They usually do it within about 5 days or so. And then they start investigating all the allegations, all the exhibits, the evidence that's presented to them to see what's going on, to confirm it or not confirm it, to find out that maybe it hasn't been what it seems to be. But they will start investigating it. And unlike people who file complaints, I mean, I can't give a subpoena for it unless I file a lawsuit.
Right.
The FEC and in Indiana, they have more resources to do stuff to compel production of evidence, et cetera.
So I think, real quick, Casey, before you hop in here, I think one of the issues with this guy, Gabe Whitley, is what is real and what's not. Nobody has any idea what is actually real. Is any of the money real? Are any of the donors real? Does the FEC have the ability to say, hey, you're running for a federal office. We demand to see your banking records. Do they have the ability to do that?
They can do that. It's harder to do that. But what if, for example, Mr. Whitley doesn't respond, then he's not defending himself. That's one thing that he could do to defend himself and say, hey, everybody's misreading this. Here's really what's happening. But they're going to check to make sure that that is what happened.
So he responded when the Indiana Capitol Chronicle was asking him about this. He said he's not worried about it. He's not going to be worried about it. He doesn't think the FEC is worried about it because last time they talked, they were fine. Everything was up to date. This isn't a question about did he have the right date on a form or the right box was checked. So does this sound like somebody who has everything up to date?
Well,
that's not even the question.
He may have it up to date, but you're right. It's not the question. The question is, where did this money come from? Is it legitimate sources? Is it within the campaign finance limits, which aren't very high? I forget where they're at, like
3,300. Yeah,
3,300 now. They raise it every election
for inflation.
For inflation,
so it's gone way up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it has, and so has the cap on that. So. Those are the things that they look at, and those are the things that are alleged in the complaints against him. Is what's going on here? Who are these people who no one can figure out where they live, where they are, and maybe they do exist, but people who are looking into it aren't finding who they are yet.
He said that he was limited in what he could say about the complaints. He called them absurd. Why would he be limited? If everything was honest,
Gabe,
Mm-hmm.
if everything was upfront and honest, why wouldn't he be able to talk about it?
Well, I mean, it goes to the thing that I deal with a lot in criminal defense. Sometimes, I mean, in criminal defense, you don't have to testify against yourself. Mm-hmm. But this is the Federal Election Commission. It's a little different. You're supposed to do what's supposed to be done. Now, some of these allegations, if they're serious enough, could result in criminal charges. I don't know if that will happen. I know that what usually happens with the FEC is they think a fine of, I'll be just blunt, of $30,000 is not much. I've dealt with people in organizations who they're stunned at the fine. I'm saying, well, they think you're the Republican or National Party or Democrat Party, you're the Green or Libertarian or whatever. They don't realize that our budgets aren't as big. So to the Republican Party, it's not fun, or the Democrat Party, and occasionally happens to candidates there because they do make a mistake. But the question is, did Mr. Whitley make a mistake, or is it not true?
Yeah. Mark Rutherford's our guest, great Central Indiana attorney. He's we're talking about this case involving Gabe Whitley, his complaints against Gabe Whitley, who's running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District. You know, when my wife started working on these, what ultimately became complaints, she just started looking into his records, and it was just a months-long endeavor for her because, as we talked about, Casey, you overturn one rock and you say, I can't be seeing this, and so you have to spend days trying to figure out if it's that brazen and that's what you're actually seeing. You know, when she reached out to you and began to say, look, I've got this information, how do I do this? How do I file a complaint? What do I do? One of her concerns was, she said, I don't want any credit for this. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I just want this information to get where it needs to go. And then naturally, obviously, she filed the complaint. It's public record. She's in the public record. Is that kind of maybe what prohibits some people? Because they say, look, I don't want to get in an entanglement. I just want to be a good citizen. I just want to do my part to make sure that everybody's following the rules and all the laws are followed.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of people won't do it because they don't want to have the time taken to have to react to it, to find out if it's true or not, to do background checks on it. This is not something you just do lightly. It's something you do when you think that there is a reason for at least a federal agency or a state agency to look into it. And it takes a lot of time. A lot of people, I don't think, do that or file these because they don't want to have to do that.
Yeah.
And take the time for it.
Real quick before we let you go, we got a couple minutes left with Mark Rutherford. There's another component to this, which is the Indiana Election Division. How are they kind of different from the FEC? Obviously, they're a state agency, but does it kind of work the same? Will the investigative process work the same for these Gabe Whitley complaints? How does that happen?
Yeah, and do they work in tandem together?
No, I don't think they'll work in tandem because they're looking at different jurisdictions. The FEC is concerned with the federal elections and the federal candidates and those organizations that work to get federal candidates elected or support them, et cetera. The state Indiana Election Division, what it does is it deals with the state of Indiana's elections, and that's what they're looking at. And when they get this in Indiana, FEC seems to be a little bit more formal, but both work very hard at it. They will then give it to all the members of the commission on the Indiana Election Commission and say, here's what we have. What do you want us to do with it? Should we investigate it? They may say, hey, we need to send this over to a different county to have them look at it because it concerns their local elections. So that's what they do in Indiana. It's both processes seem to be effective, though, in investigation.
Will they alert the person who's being investigated? Hey, we're looking into you.
Yes.
And yes, they will. And
yes.
How, in your experience, how long does an investigation take?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer.
Yeah.
The FEC still recovering from everything that happened in slowdowns with COVID, et cetera. They're beginning to get back up to speed, in my opinion. So they'll take whatever they think they need to make a good decision, good recommendations to their board about what, their staff will look into it and make recommendations.
So there's a legit possibility that this candidate could be being investigated and be on the ballot at the same time.
Yes, it happens.
Before I let you go, because it's easy with this Gabe Whitley story to get so intrigued about, like, what's real? Is he the Indiana George Santos? This stuff is so unbelievable. You got people that can't be found. You got a consulting firm that can't be located.
You've got a wife whose pictures on social media is actually from a Sears catalog.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look at this and go, this stuff is unbelievable. But the nuts and bolts of this, and this is why you're the best, Mark, this is actually very serious accusations.
Yes, it's very serious. Yes. And what people have come up with, including your wife, is that there are a lot of questions out there about what this is. Yeah. What is the truth? How is this happening? Why is it what he has filed? Why does it say these things about money raised, who gave it, how much, et cetera, et cetera? And it's something worth looking into. The best possible outcome is there is an answer for it, but the worst possible outcome is fines, and if it's lying to the point of fraud or defrauding other people, then you may have some criminal actions there too.
He's one of the best in the... Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
You're listening to Kendall and Casey on 93 WIBC.
This could be one of the most consequential elections in our lifetime.
Who will be our next president, next senator, governor?
And just as important,
who will represent us in the General Assembly?
You have a voice with your one vote.
Unhappy with the current state of affairs?
You can do something about it.
Voting is one of our most important rights as Americans.
It's how you can stand up for your beliefs,
your values,
and for future generations.
Registration to vote in the May primary is open through April 8th.
From 93 WIBC and Urban One.
I'm from Perry Township, down on the south side of Indianapolis. My family, we're Southside Catholics. We believe in hard work and keeping our word.
Indiana businessman Jefferson Shreve.
I was still in school when I started my own business, but I made sure those values were at its core. Keep your word, serve your customers, and work your tail off. But let's talk about the mess we're in today. The left's pushing their agenda, our culture's under attack from the far left, and don't even get me started on the border. I took on the left and their lawlessness in Indianapolis, and now it's bleeding into our suburbs and rising from our southern border. It's time to fix the problem in Congress. And we could fix this if the politicians would just do what they say they will, like we do in our business. But they don't. We need a fighter. We need law and order and liberty. And so I'm running for Congress. For law, order, and a secure border. I'm Jefferson Shreve, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Shreve for Congress.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and